Coming to get you, Bobber.
Wonder Woman 1984 is a 2020 comic book movie directed by Patty Jenkins, and it stars Gal Gadot, Chris Pine and Kristen Wiig. Before we get into the review, guys, this is going to be a spoiler review. Now, the reason I'm making it a spoiler review is because I can't really talk about any of the points that I want to talk about if we make it spoiler free, so this is going to be a spoiler review. Rewind to the 1980s as Wonder Woman's next big screen adventure finds her facing two all-new foes, Max Lord and the Cheetah. I'm going to break this review down into two simple parts. First, I'm going to give you the pros, and then secondly, I'm going to give you the cons. So we're going to start with the pros, and one of the biggest pros is Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I really liked the first movie. Minus the third act. The third act was a little bit choppy, but overall it was a really good DC Universe movie. One of the best Universe movies that to date at that point. And then going on to this one, I think Gal Gadot is even better as Wonder Woman now. This isn't just the second time she's played her. She's played her in the Justice League and she's played her in Batman vs Superman as well. So this is the fourth time that she's played Wonder Woman. So I think she's established herself now as Wonder Woman. So she was probably one of the best parts of the movie. Chris Pine is a very charismatic actor. One of the best parts of the first movie again was Chris Pine. So I'm glad that they found a way. We'll talk about how they found that way, but I'm glad that they found a way to bring Chris Pine back for Wonder Woman 1984. It wouldn't feel right without him being in the movie because he is a great actor, and I think Steve Trevor is a great character as well. So that's another bonus having him back. Kristen Wiig. Now, having Kristen Wiig in the movie was great. I love Kristen Wiig as an actress. Before, she was a little bit off and on for me back in the day, but overall every time I see her in a movie these days I think she's great. She's got that screen presence, and in this movie Patty Jenkins really utilised her acting chops for this film. I think she was probably the best in the film for me personally. When she was this low self-esteem woman, she was great. She was funny as well. She was witty. She was funny when she was this low self-esteem girl, and she was also funny and witty when she got her powers as well. So I think they utilised her great. Again, we'll talk about how they utilised her and the cons, unfortunately. But every time I seen Kristen Wiig, I had a smile on my face. Kristen Wiig is fantastic in this. Something else that I loved about her and her character was throughout the film, they built her up great. It was great, the build-up when we seen her as this low self-esteem girl. We seen her getting her confidence, we seen her getting her powers, and she just progressed really nicely all the way through the movie. I was ready for a dramatic showdown between Cheetah and Wonder Woman, and that's how this movie was portrayed all the way to the end of the movie. I thought this is going to be great because we've got this three-dimensional character. We don't get that a lot in DC movies. We get throwaway characters, whereas with Kristen Wiig as the Cheetah, we've got this three-dimensional character that I just couldn't wait to see in the showdown. And my last pro is nothing about the movie, it's about the trailer for the movie. I think the trailer didn't give the plot away. It gave a lot of scenes away, which we'll mention, but it didn't give any of the plot away for me anyway. When I watched the movie, I thought, okay, I'm seeing things that I saw in the trailer, but none of it is anything like what we saw in the trailer. So I think the marketing department, we have to give them a clap for that, because although they showed us a lot of the movie, we didn't know why those scenes were in the movie until we actually saw the movie. Now we move on to the cons. Now unfortunately there is a lot of cons. The first con for me is the very opening of the film. We've got this Olympic Games style thing going on at the beginning of the film, which is fine. You've got a backstory of Wonder Woman as a kid. It lasted too long for me, and the reason it lasted too long was because it was only there to tell us of a very important thing, a very important message, and that is to never lie, because you'll get caught out if you lie. And that's a lesson she was taught at the beginning of the film, and it was just for that one line. And then throughout the rest of the movie we find out why that scene was there, but it just made no sense to make it that long. It was over 5 minutes long, but it could have just been a backstory, like maybe a flashback of a minute maximum. If you want to have Sean Wright, I'm thinking of Sean Penn. If you want to have Robin Wright in the film, if she's contracted for it, then just make her say the line and that's it, and get on with it. Now that's the first con. We then get on to the second intro to the film, and that's in the mall scene, the kind of like Stranger Things style mall. It's set in 1984, of course. the mall scene felt like 1984, and that's not a positive. When you've got a movie that's made in 2020 and is set in the 80s, usually you've got a positive where, wow, that feels like 1980s. It felt like 1980s, but it also felt like it was filmed in the 1980s as well. It felt like we had 1980s technology. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but it was very cheesy. It felt like a very early 1980s comic book movie, and we know how bad they are, and that's what it felt like so far. And again, that was extended as well, only because we had to see how this rock came into the movie. There's this mysterious rock where if you hold it, it grants you wishes. Now this isn't Aladdin, this isn't Bruce Almighty, this isn't Liar Liar. But that's what it felt like with this silly little rock, and they never showed you that in the trailer, and if they did, I didn't see it. But that's what this movie is basically about. You hold this rock, you make a wish, your wish comes true, but it also takes something from you as well, and that's when we get into Max Lord. Max Lord makes a wish. He wishes to be the rock, which means not Dwayne Johnson, but he wishes to be the rock, so that when someone holds him, they make a wish, even though he influences them on what wish to make. They make the wish and he takes something from them. So that's quite a powerful tool, but they utilised it terribly here. Let's move on to Steve. Now, I did mention that Chris Pine's back. It's great to have Chris Pine back because he was one of the best things about the film, but they used a very convenient way to bring him back. No, there's not this really Christopher Nolan style way to bring Steve back, and you can't really do that anyway. But all she done was held onto the rock and wished for Steve to come back, and that's it. And he's back. He wasn't back as himself though, he went into someone else's body. And then something that I found weird was, not only was she with Steve as this other person, she was also getting him to put himself into dangerous situations, something that Wonder Woman shouldn't or wouldn't do in real life. But she's putting him into these dangerous situations. What happened if the guy who Steve's in dies? That's her and Steve's fault. So I didn't really see the point in doing that. Bring Steve back a different way. I just felt like it was a very easy way to bring him back, and they copped out. I don't know if I should blame Patty Jenkins for that, but in the writing department it was very, very poor. We've got Steve in this fish out of water scenario, just like we had with Wonder Woman in the first movie. She didn't really know what to expect because she was in this new world. Now it's roles reversed. We've got Steve who is back in, this is like 70 years later or so. So Steve's coming back, he doesn't know the technology. Now some of it was quite funny and quite witty, but there were scenes that was very cringy. Me and my wife looked at each other a few times thinking, oh, did a child write this? There was a scene where he picked up an exercise bike and he said something like, I tried to use this to get to you. Now, nobody would do that. You can be a fish out of water, but you don't have to be stupid about it. You should know yourself that if it doesn't have wheels, it ain't going to move. So there's things like that just didn't work for me. Some of the jokes and the one-liners didn't pay off, and not only did they not pay off, they were just very cringeworthy. We'll move back on to Max Lord. I've already mentioned his purpose in the film. I think he served no purpose. I did see some reviews before I'd done my own review, and some people liked Max Lord and they hated the Cheetah. I'm roles reversed. I preferred the Cheetah, and I'll get into her. But Max Lord felt like a pointless character. He was a powerless character. All you had to do was go up to him and make a wish, something that would get him to disappear or whatever. There was so many loose ends for his power that it was unreal. And again, the script needed to be tightened up completely because it was so loose, so many plot holes, and it was like a painting by numbers script. And with Max Lord, he was a prime example. We go into the CGI as well. Straight from the beginning, the CGI was terrible. The CGI on the island looked terrible. The CGI in the shopping mall at the beginning was terrible. When I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, did they just abandon the CGI halfway through? It almost looked unfinished. There was this scene where she's running, and I've seen people mention this. She's running past these tanks, and the way she's running like this. It was bad. It was terrible. Surely they've looked at that back and go, right, if she's running with the legs moving like this, make her run at that speed. It was just awful. Some of the CGI was okay, but overall the CGI just looked unfinished. Here we've got another example of a lazy part of the script, and that's with this suit that she wears in the film. Now this suit was all over the posters, it's all over the trailers, and honestly guys, what you see in the trailer is all you get in the movie. The suit served no purpose but to show something at the very end, and we'll get into that. But it was conveniently told in a very convenient ABC style. Steve says, oh, what's this? And she's like, oh, that's a suit. Let me show you. She puts the lasso of truth over him and gave him a 30-second backstory of why the suit was in existence and how strong the suit was. And that was it. It held off all these men to defeat them. And that was it. I thought, okay. And then they used the suit for one scene and it was useless. We've got Cheetah fighting Wonder Woman and she's kind of getting through the suit very easily. And then she's thought, let me just whip this suit off because it served its purpose and let's get into the fighting again without the suit on. That was it. Very lazy and very pointless. Let's move on to one of the most disappointing aspects throughout the whole entire movie, and that was Kristen Wiig. I love Kristen Wiig. I loved that she was in it and I loved her build-up, and that was part of my pros. Her build-up for the end of the movie was great. But then again, what you see in the trailer with her as the Cheetah fighting Wonder Woman is almost all of that scene and then that's it. Completely disappointing. I think if they gave Max Lord a backseat or didn't even include him at all and give the Cheetah a bigger ending, a bigger fight, that would have been a bigger payoff for me. For me, Kristen Wiig was the big bad guy and Max Lord was nobody. So when they built up her character, I thought, wow, she's really good. I'm loving her character. And then at the end, when she's fighting, that was it. And I thought, oh my God, that's terrible. And going back to the CGI, she was fighting Wonder Woman in the dark, as you saw in the trailer. So they were obviously trying to hide the bad CGI. Now, I'll be honest, the CGI for her wasn't too bad. And I think it is because it was set at night. But I think the best part of the CGI of the film was the Cheetah. And that's not saying much. Have you ever seen PJ Masks? It's a TV show. I don't even know if it's still going on, but my kids used to love it. They used to watch it. And it's made for kids like under 3 years old. And they fight these bad guys. So not really bad guys, they're just doing bad things that day. And at the end, PJ Masks teach them a lesson and say, don't do that again. And like, oh, we won't do that again. And then it's the end of the day. Everybody wins. Everybody's a good guy. That's the end of Wonder Woman 1984. The bad guy learns his lesson. He won't do it again, and he loves his kid, and it's happy families for everyone, and everyone forgets what he done, and that's it. It's a very painting by numbers script that they gave us. The ending was almost like it was written for a 3-year-old. It's that bad. We've got a post-credit scene of, do you know what, I can't even remember her name, it was that bad, but she plays the original Wonder Woman, and she is, it's Linda Carter that plays this woman at the end, and she ends up telling people that she is the original woman with the gold suit. Is it Averia or something like that? She's the original woman with the gold suit, and her post-credit scene was so cringeworthy. It was fitting for the whole movie because the whole movie was cringeworthy. It was just so fitting, but just really bad. I'm nearly done with my cons, guys. I've got one more con, I think, and that is with the title, with the setting, Wonder Woman 1984. Why? Why set it in 1984? What was the significance of setting it in that year? Now yes, 1984 was fun if you make it fun, but they didn't utilise any of the 1984 characteristics of people. They didn't use any 1984 music. Why set it in 1984? Is it just to get bums on seats? Oh, they're making it like Thor Ragnarok, they're making it this kind of retro 1980s style movie. No, they didn't. They used the colour palette of Thor Ragnarok for the trailers and the posters, but when you got the movie, it's almost like they thought, let's make it like Thor Ragnarok, but as they were filming it, they had two things on their mind. People are going to know that they're trying to make it like Thor Ragnarok, or two, the second one, is they just couldn't do it, so they abandoned it, and it was very choppy all the way throughout. We've got this colourful scene that's quite funny, and then we've got this dark scene that's very serious, and it's chopping and changing throughout the whole movie. You need to make up the mind, but my question is to the makers of the movie, why call it Wonder Woman 1984? 1984 served no purpose for this film at all. Oh yeah, I've got one more thing. It's more of a plot hole, maybe a silly plot hole, but the events of Wonder Woman 1984 were worldwide. It affected everybody in the world, and it was a big thing. A lot of bad things were happening. We almost got the end of civilization as we know it. But then in later movies, chronologically, they don't mention it at all. Obviously it's a silly plot hole, but don't give us a big event and set it before the events of Justice League, because somebody's going to have to talk about it because it was such a big event. The end of civilization, surely somebody remembers that, or somebody will talk about it at least. Overall guys, as you can tell, I didn't like this movie at all. I've seen most of the DCEU movies. I'm more of a Marvel fan, but I'm not a Marvel versus DC person because I do really like some of the DC movies. I really love Man of Steel. But this one for me, not really thinking about it, I think this is probably the worst DCEU movie by a country mile. I think Suicide Squad was better. I think Batman vs Superman was better. Justice League was probably a little bit better as well. I think this is the worst DCEU movie. I think the reason for that is because the story was all over the place. It made no sense. It was almost like it was made for 3-year-olds. The best part of the movie was completely ruined, and that was the Cheetah. She was great from the start to the very end, just before the fight, and then that was it. And I thought, wow, the only thing that I was hanging on to that might have been good was the Cheetah, because I didn't like the movie all the way throughout. And I thought, okay, she's going to fight the Cheetah. It's going to get better. Nope, we just saw what we saw in the trailer, and that was it. I know this might be a controversial movie review guys, but I have read people liked it, and that's great. I'm glad that you got something out of it. I've seen that people didn't like it, and I agree with them because I didn't like it either. But as always guys, leave your comments down below. Let me know what you thought of Wonder Woman 1984. Be honest about it. If you don't like my review, be honest about that as well. But leave your comments down below and let me know what you thought. Anyway guys, thanks a lot for watching again. Thanks for subscribing. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.